ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ
Saravjit Singh ji, I'm going to ask you some questions about symbology and leadership. I know that you've already told me that you specialize in servant leadership. Today we're going to focus on symbology and leadership, and I'm just going to ask you a few questions about symbols that are very common for us in Sikhi. The first symbol that we'll talk about is the symbolic use of Gaur and Singh in our names. So we know that Guru Gobind Singh Ji introduced this concept of using the titles of Gaur and Singh. So here we're not going to talk about the literal meaning of Gaur and Singh. We know what the literal meaning is, but what do they symbolize? And for a lot of Sikhs, Gaur and Singh symbolize being part of a community. They symbolize being equal. They symbolize having some sort of affinity with others who are also called Gaur and Singh. And you know that in leadership, we need to have affinity with people that we are in that influential role with. We need to have that kind of sense of affinity. Now, I know you live in India and I live in the UK. So in a way, like, our context is different. Here in the UK, very rarely do I meet other people who are called Singh and Gaur, whereas perhaps in India, it's much more likely that you're going to be working and living with others who have similar titles to yourself. So my question is this, that if this symbolic use of these titles creates a sense of affinity for us, how do we create that affinity, which is essential for leadership, when we're not surrounded with people who share the same titles as us?
Okay. See, as I see it, Kaur and Singh, firstly, they represent a unification of a community bereft of caste. When we use Kaur and Singh, we are not supposed to use something after it. I am saying Saravjit Singh. I should not be saying I'm Saravjit Singh Ramgariya or something like that. Okay? Because in Sikhism, we wanted to get away from caste and form a unified society of learners or Sikhs, as we call them. So we are actually aspiring to become bigger and bigger. And in this area, what we really are, we are like, prince and princesses. Like, when you say Singh, he's like a prince, in all respects, a leader. And Kaur means a princess. That's my understanding of the system.
Those are the literal meanings of Gaur and Singh.
Yeah.
Symbolically.
Symbolically, it is to show that, you're a true Sikh. Anybody can identify you as a Sikh. When you say Kaur, we know that, she's a lady. When I say Singh, it's a gent and it's a Sikh. Now, there's a thing that, say, my name is Jaswant, for instance. Or even say, okay, let's talk about my own name, Saravjit. Now, you can have Saravjit Kaur as well as Saravjit Singh. Because we use common names. Unlike other religions, we don't have separate type of names for, males and females. We use similar names.
The question, though, is not about that. The question is about how do we feel a sense of affinity with those who don't have Gaur and Singh, those who are not Sikhs. So we work and live with people who are not Sikhs. So how do we, in leadership positions, we are working as professionals in communities where, Sikhism, as Sikhs, we are a minority. We might be the only person in an organization who is a Sikh. So my question is about how do we create that leadership quality of affinity with those who are not the same as us in terms of their titles?
Okay, people who are not, say, Sikhs, I would recognize by the fact that they don't have a Singh or a Kaur in their name. Okay, then while we are actually, we don't discriminate between other people and Sikhs. If you're a true Sikh, you will never discriminate against them. But we have to always keep projecting the fact that because we are a Singh or a Kaur, or because we wear other symbols of Sikhism, like, I'm wearing a turban, we have to create what we call large of this. Large means we have to create the respect for this, what this turban represents, what our other symbols represent, what this kara represents. So we always have to be truthful and never ever get into nasty things. For instance, if I see on the road, in India, people just cross red lights indiscriminately when a policeman is not there. But if I see a Sikh crossing a red light, I feel very sad that as a Sikh, he should have obeyed even the simplest and most required directions of law.
Okay.
So when I see a Sikh with all the symbols like a pagri, I know that he should be following the precepts of Sikhism.
Okay, it's not exactly the question I asked, but never mind, we'll go on to the next one. Okay, so let me ask you about Gurmukhi then. So the Gurus gave us Gurmukhi as a script. Gurmukhi didn't exist at that time. It was created based on the Landa script, which was being used. But Guru Nanak Ji and Guru Angad Dev Ji gave us Gurmukhi as an innovative script to write a language which up to then was only spoken. So in terms of innovation, the Gurmukhi, it empowered people to learn to read and write very easily. And now, 500 years later, how are we using Gurmukhi in an innovative way? In leadership, we have to be innovative. How are we using Gurmukhi to demonstrate our leadership in professions, and or is it still battling against the languages such as English and Hindi and Farsi and Arabic that were powerful languages at the time it was created as well?
Well, I believe that in many ways, Gurumukhi today stands out more than other religions. In a way, even say for Hindus, the Hindus, the Hindi script stands out. Say for instance, when we use Ek Omkar, in India, everybody recognizes that. In North India, at least, where there are more Sikhs, and they know, yes, this stands for, what really are Sikhs. Same way as Om stands for the Hindus. I don't know whether any other language across the world uses this type of symbolism to project themselves. And when we see, when we read, say, a Gurmukhi, Gurbani in Gurmukhi, to us it feels, yes, we are looking at something which is sacred. The language itself is sacred in itself. At the same time, the way we speak Punjabi, we could not represent it well, obviously not in English, but even in Hindi, we'll have a difficult time, pronouncing many of the things because of the, what goes into the language, the way we speak, and Gurumukhi is ideally suited for that.
What about in terms of getting ahead as professionals? Do people learn, like when they go to, like the highest levels of education, for example, do they prefer to learn in Punjabi or Hindi or English?
Well, actually, at least in India, we have not developed professional programs in Hindi or Punjabi. It's still all English. If you do not know English, you will not be able to, grasp the concepts behind professional education, like in management studies or in engineering. You will be way behind others. And we are actually following what's happening abroad, because we are not really creating any of our own you know,
And
things here.
and the gurus taught us how to create, they taught us. So for me, Gurumukhi symbolizes innovation because it didn't exist and the gurus created something that didn't exist. And so why is it that we're not doing that now? Why aren't we creating our own syllabuses and our own curriculum and our own higher education programs?
Oh, actually, personally, I believe this is because, you know, to create higher education programs, you have to be working in two domains. Firstly, in the teaching domain, how you'll teach something and create programs. Secondly, you have to have practical experience of what really is happening in, say, if you want to say a company, engineering company, and you're an engineer. So how actually is engineering being used in, say, design and on the shop floor in an engineering company? Then, you know, because the progress is very fast. So we have to translate, past knowledge into current knowledge. And we can only do it if we work, say, 3 years in an industry and then come back and work 3 years in a university. Then we can create programs.
So
I would say this because I was teaching for 2 Canadian universities where they actually follow this program. But in India, when you're a teacher, you're only a teacher. When you are in industry, you don't want to go into teaching because, they teach all theory, of which engineers have lost touch with, mostly.
so it
But
seems
this is the difficulty behind it. If this was not there, and in future it will not be there, because, you know, the way engineering and management is being applied, it is being universalized. And then we can be actually teach in Gurumukhi and actually build our own, requirements like, truth and loyalties, things like that. You know, whatever Sikhs believe in, we can build it into all curriculum, and that will really create success. Because you have to be ethics in what, have ethical systems built into even in, say, engineering education. And it will happen because of artificial intelligence. Because whatever is happening, it is being translated now very quickly into current education. And by 2025, I'm sure that we will have transferred. And once we do this, we can progress much more than others because of our value systems.
So it just seems to be kind of, so 500 years ago, the masses were illiterate because the Punjabi was oral, it wasn't written. And it seems as though now, 500 years later, we're educating ourselves in English, not in Gurumukhi, so not based on our own values, based on other people. So the situation seems to be very similar to what it was like 500 years ago.
Yeah. So we can actually, we can thank the British for this, because, during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, practically 95% of the Punjabis were educated, and they were educated in Gurumukhi. So Macaulay, I got somebody, he got this bright idea that we should remove all the Qaedas in which they learn Punjabi. So for maybe even at a high price of 1 rupee a Qaeda, they removed all the Qaedas from Punjab after post this thing, Ranjit Singh. And then we were totally illiterate. But without Qaedas, you do not know English. You know Punjabi, but you can't learn the script. Imagine, see what has happened, what really happened when we stopped being literate. Where we would have been now if we had remained literate. You just imagine.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's that.
But the British understood how to do it, create, how to destroy civilization. Fortunately, they were not able to destroy, what's inside us.
Mm-hmm.
And the true belief of Sikhism as it exists in our hearts, that nobody has been able to destroy and nobody will be able to destroy. So that's, and say, for instance, there's Seva, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay. We do not.
Yeah, I was just going to go on to that Seva now. So I was just going to ask you about the symbolic, what does it symbolize? So seva and langar, these were traditions created by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji created like the first langar with the with the Sacha Sadda, and he, for me, well, this was a radical ritual, wasn't it? Because before that, people of different castes couldn't sit together and eat from using the same utensils, etc. So this was a radical transformation of society, creating a system where everyone sat on the floor together as equals and ate together. So that's very radical in terms of transformation, isn't it?
Very much so.
So,
see,
yeah, go ahead.
This, in fact, is the cornerstone of Sikhism, according to me, because it unifies society. At that time, Guru Nanak Dev Ji never thought that he would make it in religion. He was like a social reformer who wanted everybody to sit together and, say, we are all from the same source, so he symbolized this, and the gurus who followed kept on building on it. And the most important thing about this seva is that it comes from within, from us. Everything that is done in a langar is done by individuals. It is not organized like in other systems, say in Hinduism. They organize an equivalent of a langar, but it is done by a temple or something. So they all they want to you donate something money for it. In fact, they'll probably in many places in India they want to do things like that. They'll come and force, say Bengalis want to celebrate Durga Puja. They will come and say, okay, you are living in this society, you have to donate 10,000 rupees. We don't care. They just want your money and they'll organize it themselves. So there's no religiosity behind it. It's just a show. But in Sikhism, no Sikhs are asked to donate anything for a langar. It is all voluntary. And more important than the money, what we feel is that actually doing seva in the langar and creating the, cutting the food, creating everything, serving it ourselves. After that, cleaning the utensils and things like that ourselves. And even the wealthiest Sikh would not feel that he's doing something, demeaning. Or I will send 10 of my people that do it for you, 10 times more than I can do. He says when he does this, he purifies himself.
Yeah.
So,
and in Sikhi,
this teaches us humility, and it also teaches us, that wherever there's a problem, wherever anybody suffers, you must go and give langar there. Like, you have the most famous example, the worldwide langar is done from your city itself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? What's it called? Ravi Singh?
That's right, yes. He's from London. He's from London. He's from Slough in London.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I thought originally he was from Birmingham. And I know he's in London now.
Yeah.
Oh. But see, what he's doing is amazing. And he's not asking for anything.
Mm.
It all comes.
Yes, voluntary. That's right.
It's all voluntary. So it is like, what the Nihangs believe. The Nihangs in India, they are like Sikh warriors, or they were like warrior saints, in the olden time. They believe that Guru gives everything. So if they get something today, they'll eat some of it and share it all. They will not even bother, okay, what will happen tomorrow. The Guru is there. And he'll give us. And he actually gives them every day. Because they believe in it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's the other side. That's the other side of langar, isn't it? It's having the faith.
Yes, having the faith that you share. When say in Islam, they also have share 10%, things like that. Tithe, as we call it. Even in Christianity, it used to be there. So, but in Sikhism, they're going beyond this. They say, okay, giving 10% is okay, but let us give everything. If you want to be happy, let us renounce, this materialism and keep giving. The more we give, the happier we will be.
Yeah, and it's about sharing, isn't it?
Yes, it's all about sharing. So this is, as I said, the cornerstone of Sikhism, that we want to share everything with the world. We
And
may be only a small portion of the world's population, but we are recognized everywhere.
it's different, and it's different from communism because it's not like you have to share. It's not like
No, but it has to come from the heart.
Yes,
You can't, if it is forced, you can be, say, Jeff Bezos, if he gives everything, or Elon Musk gives everything.
Yeah.
After a year, everybody would have forgotten it. But when Ravi Singh is doing something, nobody's going to forget about it because it's from the heart. And they go to places, say like the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. They went and served there. Imagine, in such difficult conditions, when everybody says, why are you serving these people? And everybody saying, say like the Burmese, they say, oh, Rohingyas have been there in Burma for 1,000 years, but they threw them out. They were so ruthless. They killed all of them. But then the Sikhs go all the way out to a country and to a place, in an isolated place where nobody would really go. And they serve langar on and off every day to them. Imagine this.
This is the question I was asking you originally, and you've just answered it. The very first question I asked you, you've just now given me the answer to that, because my question was about how do we create this empathy and this affinity with those who are not Sikhs and Singhs, and you've just given me a perfect example of that. We feel the compassion. It's not to do with like whether they are one of us or not. It's to do with humanity, isn't it?
Right.
Absolutely. Okay.
It's
brilliant.
very much to do with humanity. And for instance, like our Sikh gurus, they were martyred during the Mughal times, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we do not hold any grudge against anybody who is of their faith.
Yeah, because they
We
were
love them. We actually love them.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with that. Yeah, that was what was faith. It was faith. It was to happen because the gurus. We exist because of the sacrifices the gurus do for, for mankind. Now, Christ, in Christianity, there's only one person who sacrificed. But how many hundreds and thousands of Sikhs have sacrificed in exactly the same way as Christ? That's the difference.
Yeah.
And we do it because, and there's so much empathy and affinity with other people who are not Sikhs, that we do not bear a grudge against anybody.
That's right. So it's like embracing all of humanity as being, part of our own extended family. And, the title score in Singh, that is only something which kind of gives us some kind of notion of shared values. We know what their personal history is, but everyone is a human being and everyone deserves our compassion. And regardless of who they are.
100%.
Okay, brilliant. So now let's go on to the next symbolism, because we talked about the langar, about how the langar was a revolutionary act, to have people sitting together. Well, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, riding a horse, this is like, at that time, poor people, the lower people who were considered to be low caste, they were not allowed to ride on horses. The low caste were not allowed to ride, but he didn't discriminate. He allowed people into his, into his embrace, I suppose, who were from all different castes. And when people from different castes ride a horse, it's like, again, it's a radical behavior because it's breaking those inequalities, and it's saying, yes, everyone can rise above their station. For you, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, in his times, the times are very tough, and because the Mughals were in a flux, and the prince whom we supported, the Sikhs, Guruji supported. So he did not become the emperor, Rada Shah became the emperor. And then the Sikhs were on their hit list. I would say, you know. So a saint who sacrificed his sons, eh, and who had nothing left, absolutely nothing left. He thought that I must uphold my faith and religion by becoming a soldier saint. And see, he need not have ridden on the horse. He did not have a falcon and all the kalgi and all that. But these symbols showed that he was a soldier saint and he would fight along with his people. And this was like, saying that, okay, a religious leader, you say that, oh, he's only praying, he's doing this, that, whatever. But what our 10th Guru wanted to say that when required, we will do anything to protect our faith and to protect our people. And that's how it actually, Sikhism actually grew to what it was. Because even today, if anything happens, there's suppose there's somebody comes against the Sikhs and does something, all the Sikhs will get together. It's because of what Guru Gobind Singh did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
we cannot be beaten by anything.
Right.
But
so,
if not provoked, we are the mildest people. Mm-hmm. But if provoked, then we remember Guru Gobind Singh Ji and say that we must fight for the rights of humanity, not just Sikhs.
That's right. And so riding the horse, it's an act of rebellion. It's saying it's not only for the ruling class, we are the ruling class.
See, those times, only the top warriors were allowed to ride on horses now. Ordinary soldiers had to be on the ground. Mm-hmm. You had to be like a Sardar. Mm-hmm. In other kingdoms, when they say Sardar, I'm not talking of Sikhs, they say he's the top person. Mm-hmm. So only those people allowed to ride a horse. If anybody else rode a horse, he'll be lynched in those days.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was transformation again, because he allowed people of all castes to ride horses.
Yes. He said that everybody is a leader. Everybody can and will fight when required as a Sikh.
And the falcon,
everybody will protect the faith.
And the falcon, the falcon is, that again is, the falcon is often associated with rulers, isn't it? It's
yes.
It's the bird of the royalty, I suppose. Or
yes, it is, because they have this sport. Today, if say in Pakistan, all the rich people, all the top, the jamindars, they'll have falcons. And if you go to Saudi Arabia, all of them will have falcons. People even hire a whole aircraft to carry their falcons from Saudi Arabia to, Pakistan to hunt a particular type of bird. Can you believe it? And each falcon costs maybe, costs a bomb. Maybe 10,000 pounds.
Yes.
So it's a symbol. It's a symbol of aristocracy.
And it's a symbol of, it's symbolic of the fact that each one of us can aspire to that.
Yeah. So what he said that, okay, this is a bird, but it can fight. It can bring down anything, no?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's amazing what a falcon can do. So when you know what a falcon can do, yes.
And I suppose, again, like in terms of our leadership as professionals, those of us who don't live in areas where, the majority are Sikhs, we find ourselves struggling sometimes to to enter the leadership positions, even though we're highly qualified as professionals, because it's as though we have to stay in our own lane, we have to stay within our own station. We can't rise above our station. In the Western world, Canada, UK, USA, Australia, everywhere, it's like we get to a certain point and then there's that ceiling. It's like above that, you can't rise above that, not into the senior leader positions, because they're not reserved for foreigners.
Well, actually, I would like to disagree with that, because what I find is that when you, today, in evolving companies, and in, say, in USA, companies have been evolving for a long time. They want, people of a high caliber, people who are fearless, who will take risks, who will be truthful, who will protect the assets of the company, things like that. All that the Sikhs do, they want people of this quality. And in America, at least in USA and Canada, they don't discriminate against Sikhs. And Sikhs rise right to the top. Not only Sikhs, other people with these qualities also, they are right at the top.
In the UK, we have, I think, if I remember rightly, we have about two MPs in Parliament who are Sikhs, only two, and we've been here for 60, 70 years, so it doesn't seem that we're very well represented in organizations. I'm not talking about business, because in business, I think Sikhs do very well in business, because business, they are their own bosses. But in organizations such as in higher education, such as in, the councils, etc., there is not, we're not represented, not according to our ability anyway. But I think maybe in Canada.
No, so I would say that actually Sikhs, now, the days of companies is past, brick and mortar companies. Now everything is done by startups, and 80% of the wealth will be created by startups, say this year, next year onwards. Even in the past has been created. Reuben Singh, he's from Birmingham originally, and he is one of the greatest entrepreneurs you can ever think of.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that in the business world, we're doing really well. In the business world, absolutely, we're doing very well. But and I know also that in the UK, we are, in terms of like the minority communities, we are, in terms of what we contribute to the GDP, is above average. Like we are overrepresented in terms of what we contribute, but we are certainly underrepresented in senior leadership positions when we're talking about organizations, not businesses, organizations.
Organization, okay, I was looking at it businesses. Businesses, we have no issue, because nobody discriminates anybody in business. They look for other qualities. But in politics, people look for affiliations of a different kind.
Yes, that's again what I was talking about earlier. Like when we talk about Gordon Singh, that we have that affinity, but when we come to these senior leader positions, we don't see anybody there who trusts
unfortunately us. Unfortunately, outside Punjab, even here, it is the same thing. But in Canada, it's not so. Canada no longer so. Maybe if you study the system there, at one time, one of the parties which won a lot of support in Canada it's started by a Sikh, without any money, and he got the second highest number of seats of something. I'm not very sure about what's happened, but he's very prominent, because Sikhs are not discriminated against there, because in Canada, for some reason, they do not discriminate against people. And that's why, being a very small country, I mean, the population of Delhi and its surroundings is probably more than that of Canada, the second biggest country in the world. But they really are with it the way they should be. And maybe in future, even in New Zealand, Sikhs will not be discriminated against when they prove themselves that this is what we are. Okay. Very few Sikhs there.
Okay, let me go on to the next symbol. So the symbolism represented by the Nishan Sahib. So I think in leadership, there has to be, like in leadership, there has to be ways that we celebrate our triumphs. So the Nishan Sahib with the Khanda emblem on it, it kind of represents that we have achieved, we have struggled and we have achieved the right to assert our claim to authority over a sacred space that we call Gurdwara. And, how do we protect the gains that we have made in creating these Gurdwaras wherever we have them?
When we, for instance, when we put a Nishan Sahib somewhere, we know that this territory is protected territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've struggled and we've won the right to claim that.
And traditionally, even otherwise, you know, when say in battle before Sikhism, when they won something, they put the flag there, that we own this and we'll fight for it. So but the Nishan Sahib is about that. It is sacred. See, when you go to Gurdwara, we go and do namas. We go around the Nishan Sahib. We pray to the Nishan Sahib also. It's sacred. It is a symbol which has grown well beyond its function.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, you are protected here when you come here. And originally, when the Sikhs, at one time when the Sikhs invaded Delhi, this is in I'm not sure 17 something. That time the Mughal emperor was very weak. So one party went there and they conquered Delhi. So all the Sikh gurdwaras were things that which was which where something or the other was happened with our gurus. They were given possession of that. Today also we have possession of all those huge properties.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Nishan Sahib is there, we have never had to give up these properties. No matter where, even if they're going to construct a road and say, this is for, the road will go through the Gurdwara. There's nothing doing. It's not possible. Mm. The Sikhs will not, with the Nishan Sahib, they themselves will not attempt it. Mm. Right next to Parliament House, we have a great Gurdwara, two great Gurdwaras.
And yet, and we left so many Gurdwaras behind in Pakistan.
That's another story, that actually the person who drew the line, they just tell somebody, okay, India and Pakistan are separating. At the last moment, this happened actually. It should not have happened because it destroyed India. We would have been much more prosperous if it did not happen. So they assigned somebody, you draw the line, and they told him roughly this is the territory. And because of that, many of the things which should have come into India, like Kartarpur, there's no reason why Kartarpur is in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. He just drew a straight line. There was a river now, this side in India, that side is Pakistan. And later on, he actually regretted it, that he did not consider, Sikh rights and Sikh beliefs. Even today, we say that in our, Ardas, we always say that we want pass open to these.
Yeah, because so many millions of people lost their lives because of that, the callousness, the ruthlessness with which a country divided into half.
Yeah, divided suddenly. You can't do it suddenly. You have to give people time. If suddenly divided, this is what happens.
Yeah.
But Sikhs now have forgotten all that. They do not. They have gone ahead. They are not living in the past.
Yeah. So I suppose it's like marking the territory, but it's not. The space doesn't have to be a physical space. The space is a space that we create, so it's not, we don't have to be attached to the land. A Gurdwara can move from one place to the other, it's the Sangat.
It will ultimately happen, these type of, the map is the territory kind of situation will change as civilization moves forward. Maybe by 2030, definitely. Do you believe that?
Mm-hmm. Well, who knows? So
who knows? See, by 2030, artificial intelligence is going to overtake human intelligence. Mm-hmm. And we are going to get into the age of the machines. And the machines will do everything, and they say, okay, humans, you do whatever you want, we'll give you money to live. Mm-hmm. Things like that. That happens to be another of my subjects. So, okay.
Another subject, yeah. But for today, I think we've covered quite a lot of territory. Yes, we've covered quite a lot of territory today. So thank you very much. So thank you very much. So
thank you very much.
Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.